Third live podcast of 2025 has now commenced. The gate has dropped, and we are going WFO this Monday morning. Yes, I look like I just woke up because my wife and I, we were up all night with some friends playing this video game, which honestly, if I have to say anything, I feel... Why is nothing working? Oh, that's because I got to do this. Oh, yeah, I want to talk about that soon, too. But this guy, it's actually a pretty fun video game if you have a wife or anything, because it's like a movie. So then you just decide what's going on. But anyway, I'm digressing as usual. I have some wonderful guests. So let's get this show rolling, because we got lots to talk about with Ken Roczen having a red plate. He hasn't had a red plate since World Supercross of last year, right? And then before that, never had a red plate on the Suzuki, because I don't think they really had the Suzuki at the time. So, or at least the red plate here. I don't know where all my stuff is. So... And I even showed the wrong intro. So to first start off, I'm going to introduce, we all know Coach Rob. Rob is the one and only mad scientist. And then I got my crypto moto buddy, who is, him and I are talking about trying to see if we can get sponsors into the sport of Supercross, among some other things. So how are you two knuckleheads doing?
AJ, it's good to see you, my man. It's welcome back. Welcome back. And Johnny, you just brought up something. Are you guys, what happened to the crypto company that was in Supercross 2 years ago? Where'd they go?
Out of business, I believe.
So that that's a good point, Coach Rob. Good to be here. Was that a sound bite of a dog barking, or was that actually a dog barking? I have to get that out of the way before.
That's our rescue dog raising holy heck, because the lawn maintenance guy decided to show up.
It was
later Sprocket.
Okay. Got it.
He was the one barking.
I thought there was like a sound bite and you guys were like joking around. I was like, what is happening in my headphones right now? But no, and that, Coach Rob, you bring up a good question. There was a low liquidity crypto exchange that tried to do Supercross. And it's actually kind of something I've been doing in the background, is that I actually have been trying to help the series get crypto sponsors. Kind of one of my main MOs, what I do for a living, and I think it's possible. It's just going to take the right conversation, the right company. There's been conversations happening. I'll leave it there for now.
AJ, I don't want to continue to talk about it, dude, because there's lots of money to, those guys bleed money. It's just one day they go from zero to just the liquidity of the entire country with that stuff, and could definitely help the sport of Supercross.
Well, when you think, just really fast, like when you think the UFC partnership, you're talking $20 million to get your name on the map. It's not that much money in the totality of everything to be a title sponsor. And I think if the right company leveraged it the correct way, you're getting a big discount to get in front of a international multilingual audience. There's a lot of untapped potential there, in my opinion.
Well, and I love, because it's outside the sport, and that's what.
And they can get a discount because, let's face it, UFC, Supercross, which one is going to probably have a higher price tag? It's probably going to be UFC, right?
Yep.
Talking with Jace. Jace has been honestly trying to get his ass into the UFC as well. So, and he's a big proponent of jiu-jitsu. So,
have you ever seen that guy? Have you ever seen Jace fight?
No, I've never pissed him off that bad.
Yeah, you don't want to. He's a machine. Yeah, I've seen some videos with him on the mat and stuff. It's unbelievable. That jiu-jitsu is another world.
The good news, if Jason and I were to get into a fight, with some of your training, I know I can run faster than he can.
Hey, that's what we always say. It's like an open water swim. You only have to be faster than one other person to stay away from the gators and the sharks.
True.
But AJ, you were actually at the race.
Yeah.
How was the stadium when Jet ended up winning? Were they more happy with Jet, or were they more happy with Kenny?
I think they were more happy with Deegan, to be honest with you there. So Jet at opening ceremonies definitely got booed a little bit. You could hear it. But it wasn't like an overwhelming everyone hates you. It was like you could hear that 20% of the crowd just probably a little intoxicated, being a little loud. But no, I feel like everyone was certainly from the 450 class. The real winner in the streets was Ken Roczen for sure. I think people fully expect Jet to win. So anytime he wins, everyone goes, okay. It's not like this big surprise. Honestly, in opening ceremonies, Eli Tomac gets the biggest applause from anybody. And I think that's probably consistent in any stadium you go to across America.
Yeah, I know. I made the mistake in my news show saying that Jet was the most popular 450 rider. And sure enough, man, my comment section sure let me know what the fuck was up. That was incorrect. Right. But I asked the question, is it incorrect because of what's happened lately with his contracts with the OzX and then now firing Lucas Myrtle? Like, is the booing happening from what he did in OzX?
I don't know the whole story, and I feel
I say yes.
Not over time, but I feel that they know that their reputation has been damaged. They've been vocal about Americans don't like us. So I think some of the Myrtle thing was maybe so they could say, hey, well, he did that to our contract. We didn't do that. Oh, well, he did that to this. We didn't do that. So maybe they can hide behind the he did that wall. It adds up in my mind. There's definitely more to the story. I don't know, though. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I guess I could share a little bit of what I have found underneath the rug. So he posted a bunch of stuff because I do believe what you were saying is accurate. Is they're not okay with how their name has been, I would say, advertised to the American audience, especially when you're putting yourself up against Deegan, which isn't the best. And so they needed some sort of a scapegoat, and they found a reason to try to change the narrative. If I was their PR person, that's kind of what I was doing. But I do think, so allegedly Myrtle took money from one of the accounts and they found out about it. So their Wasserman group, his agency fired him. And then also, the Lawrence brothers fired him. But the rumor, right? So here's the rumor. The rumor initially was that he was kind of stealing millions because his contract with the Lawrence brothers was for millions of dollars, which makes sense. Like, you're the best agent in the industry. Why wouldn't you get paid millions? However, the rumor of what's really went down was he needed to pay something to someone, and it was in like the sum of like $160K. So he took the money from the VIP experience of the donut stuff at the races and was going to repay it back, and got caught before he could repay it back. But that's allegedly. So that could be true. That could not be true. I just asked the question, well, why wouldn't you ask maybe the Lawrence brothers to borrow money if you needed it? Or first off, if you're the highest paid agent in the country for motocross, why didn't you have that small sum of money on hand to pay your debts? But so that's what I've heard. So again, proven innocent until proven otherwise. However, having his agency fire him, and then soon after, it was probably the agency that got in touch with the Lawrence brothers, say, hey, did you approve this? And then that's kind of the trickle down effect is my opinion. Coach, have you heard anything different?
I'm going to say, yes, I've heard different, but I don't have enough evidence on it. So I don't want to speak out of context. Yes, in 100% transparency, I have a relationship with Myrtle, so that everybody knows that. I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. I'm not trying to hide behind the wall. The thing that I don't understand was if Wasserman was going to make a comment and, essentially the public message that was put out there, that company is so big. I don't think if they did that without substance. The defamation lawsuit would be shortly behind that, which makes you think that there's got to be some merit to that, because they're not going to go out and put themselves in a situation for a defamation lawsuit. Then the idea that, like, as we always say, there's three sides to every story: your side, my side, and the truth. And unfortunately, in our sport, where it's so hard to get information about whether somebody's got the flu, I don't think we're ever going to know the truth, and everyone's going to have their own opinions. And if you love what Lucas Myrtle's done, and Johnny, we've talked a lot about it here on your show, I think Lucas has raised the bar. I'd never heard of quad lock. I'd never heard of quad lock until Lawrence's. You look at the idea that they've got a watch company, they've got a clothing company, they've got a marketing agency behind that clothing company. You look at the idea that, there's more positive than negative. I think the Lawrence experience is incredible. The amount of money that the Lawrences had to put out to even get that off the ground, what they spend every race getting those containers to each race, that's all at the helm of Lucas Myrtle. And the idea, and this is where the conspiracy tinfoil hat, as our buddy Travis from Moto Aftermath likes to say, when you look at the idea that Lucas Myrtle was able to break in with donuts, being able to break in with the Lawrence experience, break in with things that our sport had never seen before, he has chartered grounds that I think is going to be a game changer. But here's where the tinfoil hat comes on. Is he doing too much and people are starting to resist it, and therefore he got shut down? Because let's face it, he's increasing the cost of doing business because you have to spend money to make money, as we all know on the business side. So is it like he's gotten too big and now people are wanting to shut him down because the cost of doing business with the Lawrence brothers is getting quite expensive? It's lucrative for the Lawrence brothers, as it should be, because, like what AJ was saying with Deegan, right? Anything you wrap around Deegan is going to get a pop. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. If you put a logo on them, you're going to get a pop. The same way that we've talked about Quad Lock and then these different companies behind them. So has Myrtle gotten too big too fast, and the sport doesn't like it, and now the system is slowing it back down? Could be. The way it was handled makes absolutely no sense. The way we all woke up and there's this public, it doesn't make any sense.
That's what I always wondered. If he got blindsided like that, he had to be stepping on some toes. There has to be. If he really got blindsided and honestly didn't know what was coming and woke up with the news like we all did, that's the part that has me scratching the back of my head, which makes me, I know there has to be more to it. There just has to be.
There's definitely more to the story. And AJ, you lived with experience with the biggest crypto YouTube channel going 180 with shit from people not talking to each other. And, that's why I say allegedly, right? Because that's the rumors of what. And so the information out there kind of makes sense, but then it also doesn't make sense. It's pretty much when you're the number
three
one.
Sides to the story.
Yeah, and when you're number one, you got a target on your back, right? Have said before to even some of the riders, the only thing harder than having a competitive advantage is keeping a competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
Right. And we live in a world of, that I know all too well, that originality is undetected plagiarism. Because of what Lucas Myrtle has done, every other agent is trying to be Lucas Myrtle and do exactly copy paste what he's done for their riders. He is the Ricky Carmichael of agents in the sport of motocross and supercross, which is awesome. And I wish him the best. And that's why I say that, we don't know if any of that stuff is fact. What we do know is fact is the Wasserman Group, who I'm assuming probably controls all of the paychecks, fired him. And that's the big issue there. Not so much that the Lawrence brothers fired him, but that the Wasserman Group fired him. So there's something.
That's a big distinction, though. That's a massive distinction. And the thing is that the number it gets thrown out, $167,000. Let's be honest, that's peanuts. That's like
yes,
20 bucks in business world, really. So it feels like they won him out. Someone wanted this to happen, wanted to smear his name.
Yeah.
So what I don't understand, though, Johnny, when you're dealing with agency work, like if you go back to the meeting, or excuse me, the Gypsy Tale podcast, where Gypsy Jace had on, and I'm drawing a mental blank who it was, but they were talking about, I want to say it was Astafin. I think it was Astafin. Don't hold me to it, but it was essentially somebody was on Gypsy Tales talking about Josh Hansen was down at the Lamborghini dealership and wanted to buy his second or third Lambo. And he's having to call his agent saying, I'm going to buy this. And they were saying, leave the parking lot now. Leave right now. So my point is this is an agent on public podcasts talking about the idea that these riders themselves don't have direct access to the funds. Everything's got to be dispersed through the agency. That's where I don't understand. Regardless of my friendship with Myrtle, that is separate completely from did you do it or you didn't do it? You know what I mean? And the truth always prevails, whether you're on the wrong or the right side, the truth always prevails. But I don't understand how you can get access to funds when it's got to be released by the agency before it's even liquidable cash to actually purchase something. Because that's one of the benefits of Wasserman. They provide you legal counsel. They provide you financial counsel. They help with the funding. You know, again, public knowledge. Hanson wanted to buy another Lambo, and they're like, nope, we're not releasing the funds. And that's not because they're being hard-nosed, but because they're trying to help them realize it's a depreciating asset. And that's a couple $100,000 that you'll never see.
Riders, they know realistically one thing: they know how to turn the throttle.
Absolutely.
You know? So, anyway, I don't even know how we got started on the topic. It's just
let's go on that thread of thought. I liked what AJ said. Looking at bringing crypto, bring some outside money, maybe elevate the game a little bit. Let's go to Mr. Red Plate himself when he got kind of pushed back when he showed up at the press conference in a tux or nice coat. And remember, he said the NBA players show up to their press conference dressed to the nines, and Kenny got mocked for trying to look stylish. And you look at Jet and Hunter, they've pushed the nut. You got to give Shimoda, very stylish. He's bringing the culture. Deegan's bringing in the Supreme and all these, right? So let's talk about Mr. Roczen, who showed up to press conference a couple of years ago, dressed up in a nice. I won't say it was a suit. I think
it's because our sport is so resistant to change, and we're supposed to have those polo workout jerseys that have all your sponsors everywhere. Like that's how it's been. That's how you represent your sponsors. But truthfully, in today's day and world with social media, how often do you really hear Deegan say anything about his sponsors?
He doesn't.
There's no way. I want to thank Star Yamaha and Monster Energy spiel every time. That's annoying. I rarely hear Deegan ever do that.
He's never done it.
It's synonymous. You follow Deegan on social media, you know who the fuck is supporting him. Therefore, if you want to support him, you do the same thing. And if you look at UFC, that's kind of the same thing too. Anyway, they've got a little bit different rules that have changed where I don't believe they're allowed to have their own individual sponsors during the event. AJ would be able to tell a little bit more about that. But coming full circle is I think he got more pushback from his sponsor showing up in a suit rather than having Honda at the time all over him.
Right. Well, look at Hunter and Jet. You've never once heard him mention any of their sponsors, but if we were to poll the chat room right now, I guarantee you 3 of their 5 sponsors would be labeled, right? If you ask who sponsors Hunter and Jet, you're going to get the Red Bull, you're going to get the Honda, you're going to get Quad Lock, right? They're Alpine Star riders, but they never have to comment on it. And this is where, Johnny, we've talked a little bit about it on the show before, that you can tell the teams where it's a requirement that you must start rattling it off, because they'll completely redirect the interview question and they'll interrupt it and they'll just start, going down this laundry list. And it's horrible. It's like the fake drinking of the energy drink on whether they're the fastest qualifier or they win the heat race or the main. There's not even fluid in it. Like, they're such bad actors. Stop.
Well, at least it's Monster Energy, they do have the tour water that literally says tour water on it. So, at least you're drinking
But
water.
They're not drinking anything. You can tell they're doing a fake swallow. It's like, you guys are not actors. At least put water in it, so at least you swallow, so it doesn't look because you can just tell. It's like, and if you notice, and if you go back and you look at the last year and then this year, you will notice that it says by contract that on the live TV, you must actually put it against your lips and act as if you're drinking it, because they all do it. Doesn't matter who the company is. Red Bull and Monster, Rockstar, they always are showing them drinking it on live TV.
Yeah, I think it's like an extra $1,000 or something, or 500 or 1,000 every time they do it. That's why they always remind themselves right at the end, like, oh shit, I got to get that extra $500 or whatever. But I Coach, I like where you were at the beginning. Yeah, kind of talk about Kenny showing up in the suit, and I think the whole money and motocross thing has slowly evolved. I feel like, Johnny, like you said, change happens very slow. People in our sport are very resistant to change. But I do feel that the riders are pushing it along in a natural evolution. Like Kenny trying to wear a suit, saying, hey, the basketball guys do it. Like, look at that. And now, it's very Deegan, commonly wears Gucci. His parents are always wearing Gucci, designer. They're always kind of playing that card. And I think they should, because unless people need to make the connection. Oh, if I become a motocross racer, I become a multimillionaire. If I can be successful in this sport, I become rich. Like, that's why kids want to play baseball. That's why kids want to play football. And that connection needs to be there. And I think that it is there more than it's ever been, but it's still not there enough, in my opinion. I feel that every race they win, it should be blatantly obvious. Oh, with the sponsor bonuses, with the prize purse, this guy just made this much for getting fourth place. Damn, that's crazy. They should be completely upfront about the guy in eighth, in my opinion. I think it should be well known. That's just how I see it, though.
AJ, in UFC, like, you can literally, after the event is over, you can publicly go look and see what the gate was, how much did UFC make on pay-per-view, how much did they make with attendance.
Dana
there.
says it that's the first thing he says at every press conference. It's the first thing he says at every press conference. Complete transparency.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I would love to see Feld and Supercross come up there and say, hey, sold out stadium. We had 37,000 people there. Cause I know they are doing some good things. I will say this, if you use this QR code, the California Fires, this is going to the Red Cross. There's going to be an auction for one of the Troy Lee Designs helmets here, and they're going to give all proceeds to the California wildlife, so I do have to say, Feld, I'll continue to help promote a good cause of that. But I would like to see them in the press conference start off like Dana White, saying, hey, this is how much we had here. Kenny, he is getting such and such bonus. Like, make it kind of an acquirement for. Go for it, AJ.
I think you just said it, dude. I think you just said it. How UFC has Dana White. You think UFC, you think Dana White. There are like people. There's a couple people on the island of misfit toys, but there isn't like a Dana White. Like, I think Supercross, motocross needs that guy, that representative that's not scared, that can take the heat, that doesn't give a shit, that will face forward and represent the sport. I think that there are people that do their jobs and do their jobs well. I'm not taking anything away from Davey Coombs or Jason Wygant or anything, but like, I think if there was a clear cut, this is like our guy. I think the communication, especially for the financial aspect of it, the transparency of it, that's something they should think about, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy that comes to mind is Wygant, right? But again, he's got to be friends with the riders, and he's also got to be friends with the series, and he's doing the broadcast as well.
He's wearing too many hats to be.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a broadcast guy.
But you also have to look at the history of transparency. When we were told that Las Vegas sold out, and it was not sold out. I mean, all you had to do was look at the stands, and it was not sold out. But they were promoting that SMX Vegas sold out. So how far back do you have to go to find somebody who doesn't have a reputation of distorting the truth, that's been caught lying? And that's the problem that we run into is, I don't know Dana White. I've never met him. I don't know anything about his history at all. But when you guys talk,
Trump gave him a job too.
Yeah, and I know of him.
I dapped him up at the Lakers game last week.
Did you? I'm not a UFC fighter, so if I see Dana White, I know him only based on what I've seen him in the media. Like when some of the interviewers tried to tell him that he was manipulating, and he's like, I don't tell anybody what to effing say, But I could only go off of that. I think the idea is great, but how far back would you go to get somebody that has been, the guy that comes to mind right off the top for me would be Jeremy Albright, who's now gone to work for the AMA. He's always been very, I mean, I don't, being in the sport for 40 years this year, I've never heard one derogatory comment about him ever. You know, and I don't know about you guys, how many people can you go to find?
It doesn't have to be someone. I think, you know, I mean, to be fair, Dana White wasn't a professional fighter. It doesn't have to be a guy, an industry guy. It could be like a well-groomed, fresh face with no demerits, with no, you know,
here's,
you know, sorry. Well, a lot of people don't like Dana, you know, but he doesn't care, right? He's
they
the guy
respect him though.
Exactly.
Well, do you want a sport to grow, or you just want to have fans? There's two different things here. There's a lot of people that don't like Bezos. There's a lot of people that don't like Musk. It doesn't matter what people think of them. They're growing a multi-billion-dollar business. And I think that's the problem that you run into. You don't have to be an ex-fighter. It's the idea that he is the brand. He is the guy behind the UFC. And unfortunately, our sport has so much tainted history. There's nobody that could go out there and speak on behalf, and people would say, oh, those numbers are authentic, because they've been proven that there's a lot of misinformation that's put out there. Okay. That the numbers are great.
Savin Steve, CC, I'm sorry, man. I cannot pronounce your name, but love the picture of your pit bull. Is just talking about underpaid for sure. And yes, that is a thing that's going on for real. But the race that I was at, a lot of guys were talking about kind of the death of the privateers, you know, which is sad, right? However, truthfully, if we are not wanting to be fans, and if we're looking at this from like a business standpoint, just like what you said, Coach, as far as like growing the sport, dude, the privateers have to die. Like, just, you know, this whole pay to race deal shouldn't be. Does the money come out of Ken Roxon's account to sign up for A1 to the SMX finals? No, his team pays for that stuff. But for any other privateer that shows up, Bobby Piazza and all those guys, they're paying the $350 to $450 entry fee, right? Like, truthfully, with what the Supercross Futures are doing, and I believe the first round of them is at Glendale at the Triple Crown, right? That is an invite only, and who gets invited? Fast effing kids. Who are the fast effing kids? They're the ones that have the fastest motorcycles, the most help, which is from Kawasaki, you know, the red KTM Brigade, the Chosen, right?
There's an example though of the lack of transparency. Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah. That this is why this is like the full circle, and we know that my answers are very open-winded, and so you guys can rebuttal me after I finish in the next 30 seconds, hopefully. And so those guys go to the race, and they're the show, and that's how you get your pro license, which nobody really knows. Lack of transparency on how many points or what you need to do for the futures race to get your pro license. But then all of a sudden now you get to be in the 250 class. And so eventually, without people actually saying it, they're getting rid of the privateers. Like, that's just a fact. Okay. Yeah. And then so now you're going to have all guys that are getting paid to race from factory teams, which is good, which is how the racing should be. Is everybody on the gate should be on a team making some sort of a salary. That would level everything up. A lot of the privateers are betting on making the night show and making the main event to pay their bills, right? That's the first thing that needs to kind of go away. And then with the purse money, let's make another class. Let's make it the e-bike class, or for the privateers or something. And then whoever wins one of those, give them a chance for a factory team of some sort. Doesn't have to be a top tier factory team, but that's just where I see the evolution of business. Yeah, you're going to piss off the privateers, but stop being resistant to change. We have to do something different than we've done for the last 30 years. If you don't change and innovate, you're going to get left behind. Look at Kodak. Look at all these other companies. They fail to level up with everything. Therefore, I feel like the sport is just going to die if we continue to have the privateers. And yes, again,
I understand the concept. I know what you're saying. I've heard Gypsy Tales' argument on this as well. And like, my only pushback is, well, what if the gate's not full? Great job. You know what I mean? Like, this is why we have heat races. Like, if we don't have heat races, right? There's already not enough show. I went to A2 last week, and I always think to myself, I literally fly across the country. I come to these races because I enjoy to. I've been an enthusiast. I grew up my whole life. Racing's in my blood. But I do, all these tickets, and I watch 4 heat races, 2 LCQs, 2 mains. And that's it. That's it. It's over. You're done. Thanks for coming out. And then, so I'm just like, if there's no heat races, what is there?
AJ,
just
you're thinking
more
too
classes?
little, though.
There has to be more classes. That's it. Like there has to be a way, and those guys are going somewhere. Like you can't, because where do we draw the line on who's a privateer and who's not a privateer? Like, do you have to show up in a rig? If you show up in your van, can you not come? Like, look at Max Sanford. Here's a perfect example of a guy, Max Sanford, friend of mine, by the way. I am biased here, but Max Sanford last year showed up in his van. This year, he's with host Kawasaki. This is a 3rd round, was this week. He made his first main from the heat, mind you. He's a privateer, but he's not a factory guy, and he's not a top 10 guy, but he's there, and he made it. And he's fast enough to have, 102s, 103s in qualifying. Like, where do you draw the line on you're not good enough? Who is going to come up to these guys and be like, you need to be in this class? Like, Coach, I know you're being incredibly respectful. It's a hard line to draw. That's what I'm going to say. It's a hard line to draw, bro.
And AJ, that's what I'm saying is it's going to take time. Nothing happens overnight. You do enough Supercross futures, you have enough of these kids that are now on factory rigs. Boom, there's your gate. I mean, we look at the 250 class. Pro Circuit has been just shooting out injured riders. So there's going to come a time where I want to see the privateers nowadays be the B rider for somebody that gets hurt, right? Where they're just on salary for that stuff. And then, like I said, people are on the same ideology that I'm having here with the stock class, like a B main. Move all of the purse money to the B main. Does Jet Lawrence really fucking care about the $16,000 that he won from Feld Supercross couple nights ago? No, he cares about the 6 figures that he won from Honda, right? And what is contracted to do. That's the money. Give all the money there. And honestly, we don't really enjoy watching the LCQs that much because we're like, oh, these guys aren't going near as fast. But if you change the narrative,
I love the LCQs.
No, I get it. I get it. But like from a fan, like from somebody you're trying to grow the sport, not somebody that's a hardcore fan that has somebody that they're personal with, right? If I'm trying to create a narrative around people and the excitement here and create a story there, say, hey, here's the B main. This is for $20,000. These guys are racing. Like, I really enjoy watching the Pulp MX at Denver or Utah, that little battle between those guys, because those guys are going to make good money. Why don't we do that every weekend? Every weekend, B main, all the privateers, $16,000. Boom, for the winner. 5th place makes $6,000. Do that every single main event race, I would say. Okay, Coach, I've talked so much. You go. I'm just going to.
No, it's all good. And you guys bring up great points all the way around. I think we're talking 2 different subjects with one ultimate goal. You guys were talking earlier about the futures. There's no clear path on how to get into the futures. And this is where I was talking about the lack of transparency and honesty. The promoters like to I know it's redundant. The promoters promote that the combine outdoors and the futures indoors. And I think somebody in the chat room mentioned that they've renamed what the futures are, but for simplicity, we'll just use that going forward. You can't get into the futures unless you're plugged in. So to go out here and put this marketing campaign together, like, oh, look at us as a group of promoters, we are all about the future of the sport, is a complete farce. You cannot get into the futures unless you're in with somebody. You give the obvious, right? If you've got a Star Yamaha amateur program, contract, Kawasaki, etc., we know that those are just kind of part of the environment. What I don't understand is, let's say that there's 1,000 kids in the southeastern region that want to come and do a futures race. They're screwed. They can't get in, plain and simple. And it wouldn't be hard. You have more than 1,000 athletes that are at Loretta's every year. So it's not that there's a lack of numbers. So when you say that you want to provide an opportunity for young and up-and-coming riders, an opportunity to show what they're made of, why don't all the names go into an electronic lottery And those 20 riders are randomly selected, not based on politics, but based on they showed they have the qualifications. They get put into a lottery, and you can't compete in more than 2 futures per year, right? If your name gets selected and you've been in a futures race in the last 3 weeks or a couple rounds. So now you have a legitimate futures system that says, okay, here's a group of kids that have shown capabilities, and then they're going to be given a legitimate opportunity, not who you know. Again, you're always going to have those 2 or 3, Team Green, KTM, all those. I understand that. That's part of the development program. But you promote it as if, look at us, we're out saving the sport, providing a feeder system for kids that the average Joe can't get into. Total bullshit, and it's a farce. Then on the other side, when you get to the top, when we're looking at the idea of what constitutes a privateer and what doesn't, well, there's no clear path on how you're even supposed to get a pro license, because go back and look at it. You got to go to Mini O's and race a so-called supercross track. You have to race a motocross track to get supercross points to get a supercross license racing a motocross race as an amateur. Now, again, put all politicals aside, put people having disagreements in direction. If we're talking about the idea that we want to grow the sport, then there needs to be a very clear cut. And unfortunately, all of this stuff that's in writing does not come to fruition. And I know that only because I'm on this side of the telephone of parents who said, look, I went to the website, I did everything that they said to do, and just simply I can't get in. And then you go and you look at the people who are on the starting gate at these races, and quite bluntly, there's people that shouldn't be there, but they're only there because of their connections. Now, again, I'm not naive to politics. I understand it runs the world. But what I'm saying is, if you're going to promote that this is literally a development program, then make it a legitimate, and I hate to use the word fair because in today's snowflake world, right, everything's got to be fair. It's not what I'm insinuating, but make the process equivalent. The combine is promoted as something that's supposed to emulate what football does, and you can't even get into the combine. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. If you look at who's on the starting gate at the both combine and the futures, and you look at the amateur nationals, like if you go to Loretta's and you look at all those riders that are capable, there are people that didn't finish in the top 10 at Loretta's that are getting spots in the futures gate. That doesn't make any sense. If you're saying that you're truly developing the future riders, it doesn't make any sense. So to me, this is where I have a problem with what's being said versus what's being done. And that's where I think, like what you were saying earlier, having a Dana White, we can't even get this off the ground. You damn sure are not going to have somebody that's going to be able to be a spokesperson to say that these are our numbers and anybody believe them. That's the sad part. That's the sad part.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think there has to be some sort of obviously this is something that we've been talking about on this show for years. I've been listening to you guys talk about on this show for years. There has to be some sort of change. And to go off what Johnny said, I think it is going to happen slowly, but I think that I feel that the people at the top of the sport that like kind of control things behind the curtain, I think that they hear us.
I'm looking.
I think that they're well aware of, the problems, but the actual logistical way to make things happen or not happen are like kind of two different stories. And I kind of feel that with it costing $175 to sign up for futures or the $450 it costs each rider to race, when everyone's like, yeah, but all the fans pay to get in here. Why do they have to, you don't pay to play football if you're a pro football player. Like, I understand all those arguments, but it also comes down to if you compare how much UFC makes in sponsorship dollars compared to how much motocross makes in sponsorship dollars, we're talking an ocean between these two things. And I think that it does come down to the overall visibility of the sport and overall net income from outside sources.
Here's a little bit more, right? Things called SMX Next. We've got our handy dandy community that's helping with that. And thank you so much for making the comment. And also, if you're here, hit that like button. We got 250 people here. Hit the like button. The YouTube algorithm loves it. If you love my hair, smash that like button even more. Thank you so much. So here, Eligibility, you have to be a A or a B classification. Being a B rider, going on to a supercross track with some big ass whoops, even if there's only 9. Ouch. 2025 have to be 14 years of age. 2026, 15. 2027, 16. Okay, so now they're starting to make it seem as if you're almost having to get out of, what is that? A junior in high school have to be 16 years for the eligibility. Okay,
And this is futures, Johnny?
yeah, this is the SMX Next qualification
Sorry,
for
go ahead.
the Road to Supercross. So Road to Supercross qualifying through the SMX Next class. 4 points required to earn a license. B classified riders are not eligible to earn points for the premium qualifiers and national championship. Okay. And then points will be earned in a consecutive 20-month period. And if you win, you make 2 points. So you have to win at least 2 of them. If you finish 10th, you still get 2 freaking points. So basically, if you get 10th and you do that twice, you have your Supercross license.
What?
Very interesting. Everyone is
Wait till you see the next one. It gets even worse.
premier
Scroll down.
qualifier. Road to Supercross point scale. Yeah, that's interesting.
Keep going down. Look at the next one.
Or,
Look at the next one, all the way to 20th, and you get the same points as the winner. So if you don't see this as being a cash grab, it's like the areas. The areas are nothing more than a cash grab. You throw your money out, you do a couple laps, you go to the regional. It's a joke, and it handcuffs the tracks that have it. And here's the other thing, AJ, you had mentioned earlier, Johnny, you mentioned that change takes time. How many years ago did the futures come out? So there's a lot of pomp and circumstance on the surface.
But honestly, Coach, it looks
to
like you have to make the main event, right? That's the thing. And truthfully, I don't have a problem with the top 10 guys, because if you think of the guys that were winning the futures, right, are the JUJU Beaumares, the Cole Davies, the Deegans, right? So those guys already could qualify for a Supercross race without doing this. So you're already racing against that kind of talent. So if you're finishing 10th, I definitely think you're good enough to have – that's your privateer right there.
But hold on. Finishing 10th in what race? See, this is to get eligibility for futures. You have to be top 10 at what race to get 2 points?
Yeah.
Is it 2 points in the futures to get your pro card?
It's 2 points at these races. They're having 4 of them, right? With
all
this
right. So hold on. How do you get into the SMX at whichever that first one was, Glendale? Who gets selected?
And it looks, as of I'm reading this, that they have qualifiers to where and I'll ask more questions when I'm there at Glendale, right?
Yeah.
But it's looking like it's becoming a little bit more open, okay? Because the entry fee is $175 per class, okay? And I'll do a little bit more research on this, because there's more information out there, which is good.
But
right?
it's not transparent. What we're saying is, who's eligible for the people that we see racing SMX on a Saturday night? We understand there's an age, we understand there's a fee, but you have to be hand selected to go to an SMX futures race. You cannot qualify for a futures race.
So there's a maximum of 25 riders.
And I think that changed, because I remember 1 year there was like at Loretta's, they were like, oh, the top whatever in this class get a spot on the gate. And I think that obviously has changed over time, because I remember they said that 1 year, and I was like, oh, that makes sense, because they're at Loretta's.
That's when it was brand new, and they wanted to have a feeder.
What happened to that? But I think that's a great rule.
It's gone away. Yeah. And even if you were at the top at Loretta's, as I said, go look at the people who are lining up on the gate and compare it to the results at the national championship. Who's on that gate based on how they got there versus based on what this print is saying? Because there's nowhere on here that says we get the age, we get the price, we get what races there's going to be a futures race, but there's nowhere that says how those riders are going to be selected for each one of those rounds. And I can tell you from experience having riders, you can't just send your registration in and be eligible for the futures race. So if you have 1,000, let's say you have 100 people that want to get 20 of those future spots, then they should go and do an electronic lottery, and then those 20 people should be selected, plain and simple.
So it's saying you're going to get eligible riders are going to receive a registration link, right?
But the point is who gets that registration link?
They're selected.
Only
The
somebody,
chosen.
only the chosen.
Yep.
So now we're back to the idea that you're out here promoting that, look at us, we're saving the sport of motocross and supercross by providing these opportunities for these kids to display what they're capable of. And it's nothing more than the kids that are practicing at the supercross tracks at Star and Cowie and all these training facilities and again, I have no problem with politics. Just don't say one thing and then do the other and then come out and then promote and market.
Right. It's not telling the entire thing there. And truthfully, Coach, I honestly don't have as much of a problem with it because, again, the guys that are winning it are the Cole Davies and the JUJU Beaumares, right? They're already like professional level athletes there that are on. You do not put a B rider on this kind of a supercross track. You're going to have, it's a liability.
But you don't go out and promote over here that you're out here saving the sport and you've got this world-class feeder program when it's not a feeder program. It's a selection process that comes only from the existing teams. I agree with you. I have no problem with it. If each factory team wants to send 4 riders, awesome. Have 20-man gate, and these are kids that we're not going to see kill them.
It's the lack of transparency.
And that's
just
basically what
tell
we've
us
just been
how.
talking
I'm
about.
with you. Coach,
that's all I'm saying. Because I don't want to see a kid, I don't want to have my son who doesn't have the opportunity to practice supercross to go try to send it on a supercross track. He's going to kill himself. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to say, which I think is, I've got a very demented sense of humor. I think it's interesting that you've got very, very competent, Johnny, you don't like it when I talk about your riding, but you're freaking a badass on a bike, right? You have to jump through all kinds of hoops to get a pro supercross license to go race the tracks that an 85 kid's allowed to show up and race. That I don't understand. Sorry. Okay. 125 riders, 85 riders, they're allowed to go out and ride a track that if I don't have a pro supercross track, I can't go to California and get on a pro supercross track and practice because I don't have a supercross card. But I can get into a futures class and go on a full-blown track that Roczen and Jet's going to ride. Explain that one to me.
Hey, well, even the KTM 50 riders get to ride it too, you know? They get to ride it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we saw some kids getting disqualified for jumping finish lines when you had them out there. You know, like there's
Don't
an
get
issue.
Me started with that.
Yeah, there's an issue with that. So I completely agree. It's a lot with transparency, and yeah, those kids should not be out on that track if even you're not going to let them jump that kind of stuff. You know,
and just to interject here, I got to say this. My first year at Minios, I was an 85, 12 to 13 racing against Blake Warren, Austin Stroop, and Nico Izzy. And that year, where you normally, like now there's that straightaway where the mechanics put the boards out and there's that 90-degree left. That 90-degree left used to go into a dragon back whoop section that was 8 whoops up and then 8 whoops back down the other side.
Before you drop in?
Every amateur had to go through that section every lap. And now it's like, oh, only the A guys do the step on, step off, triple out. And it's like, what? And I understand the safety because some obviously kids got taken out on stretchers from that up and down whoop section. And I went over the bars on that section and it was dangerous as all hell. But my point is that like without that element, like,
well, dude, like living in Colorado and living in Arizona, and the tracks are dramatically different than the tracks that were at California. Like you went to California because even the motocross tracks, the lips were big, right? And here in Colorado, they used to be big, but now everyone is making these faster jumps, but easier, right? Because they're trying to have a broad of making, you know, lack of a better term, not scaring some people. And dirt bike racing used to be like a fad where you're a bad mofo that, you know, you're not scared of anything. You go out there, but then it became more corporate and we need to keep the tracks alive. We need to have more riders. And how are you going to have more riders? Well, they can't be scared of the track. So everything has been dumbed down. Right. And for full circle on this, I agree with both of you. We should have transparency, but the supercross stuff should be scary. The supercross stuff should be professionals. But again, coach, there should be transparency on how to get there for that stuff, because there's a huge gap between your local track to then the professional track, because like I said, everyone that's used to racing and riding now they're almost road race tracks. They're not that technical. And then you go to an actual supercross track and it's incredibly technical. But we're getting close to where I want to wind down, because I got to make breakfast for this little itty bitty person. But with Deegan, right? Big swing between him on the podium, basically showing a kink in his armor, saying how embarrassed he was for third place, to now back to shit talking about, you get in my way, I'm going to knock your ass out kind of a mentality. So AJ, you were there. Talk about the stadium and, your honest opinions on that. And then Coach, I want you to as well.
I think I'm going to go ahead and say it. People are going to hate me. And I like Hayden Deegan. And I like Brian Deegan. Brian Deegan and I have talked about Bitcoin before. He's a good guy. But I think JUJU Beaumare is going to win the title. I think he has Deegan's number. I think his strategy at A2 to just sail the second was a strong points night for him. He's going into the Triple Crown with the red plate. And I kind of saw him in real time make a really big decision, because in the heat race, that corner was like, I could see that corner clear as day. It was right in front of us, where Deegan took him out before that triple. Deegan took him out. To be fair, JUJU kind of messed up and hit the tough block and crashed. He didn't get Vince Freeze taken out, but he did crash as a direct result of Deegan's block pass. But it wasn't like the most dirty. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, in the first lap of the 250 main event, Deegan kind of overshot that double, and JUJU went inside of Deegan, and they went off the face of the triple together. JUJU could have sent Deegan to fucking Narnia. He could have sent him to the cheap seats, to the shadow realm. He could have obliterated Hayden Deegan. And he didn't. He didn't. And I don't think it's because he's a nice guy. I think that he is going to win this on his own terms, respectfully. And he's not going to play Deegan's game. He's going to play his game. And Deegan's game, like he said in that one interview, it's nothing new to him. I've been dealing with this kid since I was 7. This is what he does. So I think he kind of feels like, you know what? I don't need to race him the way he races me. I'm going to race him the way I'm going to race him. Like I said, and just for him to file behind him in second, and then on the podium say, oh, he was the better man tonight, and say nothing else. That was cold. That was ice cold for him to say, oh, he was better tonight. After all that, that's all you have to say. That, why he's because he knows he's better. He knows he has his number. And
Deegan's doing whatever he can to win. And he's trying to get into his mind.
Against the wall, scared to death of Julian Beaumare. I'm telling you, JUJU's going to win the title. That's it. I said it. I'm done. I did my part. I love you guys.
All right. My point is, Deegan had to go out there to make a point to try to make JUJU scared of him. And I believe he did a little bit, because JUJU tried to retaliate, but he was unable to do it twice, right? Deegan is a different monster off the motorcycle. And Coach, go.
I just think when you look at that pass, JUJU looked to his left and he kind of checked up and he went a little bit high. He brought that upon himself. He thought Deegan would just come in, get in, and go out. And then Deegan kind of slowed up just enough. And then I think a combination of two bad things. JUJU got up and got out of his way, but then ran out of berm. And then Deegan paused just long enough to make sure nothing dirty, no harm, no foul. I do believe that Beaumare is not afraid of him, which I think is interesting. And then the only other side of the equation when it comes to this whole situation is I think it's very intriguing that we haven't seen Deegan do what he normally does, where, starts darn near in last place and could literally just go right through the field. he's not slicing through the field like a hot knife through butter like he was doing last year. That doesn't mean that Deegan sucks. It doesn't mean he's lost his edge. I just think people, ironically speaking about Deegan, when Brian and Hayden were on with Jace with Gypsy Tales, and Brian was talking about coming into the pro ranks, they had put a bar at a certain point where they knew they needed to be better than. And then when they got to the races, they realized that the work that they put in put them actually ahead of where everybody else was. Now, that's not me talking. That's coming out of Brian, and I'm just paraphrasing, of course. But I think other people are starting to raise their bar. Daniel Blair's done a great job with JUJU, setting the expectations. Hey, this is what it's going to take to beat this guy. To AJ's point, exactly. It's racecraft. And JUJU is more of a tactician. And I think Deegan's a very smart racer. The fact that he's not going through the field like he was last year is definitely causing him to have to regroup. And I think it's great for all of us as spectators, because, and AJ said it earlier, like nobody's surprised that Jet wins anymore. At the ripe age of 20 years old, we're already bored of seeing a guy dominate. Think about that. Those are really interesting problems to have, right? So with Deegan, nobody would be surprised if Deegan wins, but I think it's great for us as spectators, because it's not like Deegan, we know he's coming. Okay, yep, he's at the front. You start looking at the rest of the race because it's game over. I think we're seeing some of the best races. And I love it when Deegan, now I have to ask you guys, when Deegan was on the podium and said that there was some shit talking going on by Beaumare, when and where was that said?
So
what was Deegan referencing?
JUJU went on a podcast. I don't know if it was Vital or Paul. I forget, but I remember there was a thumbnail on YouTube that said something to the effect of, like, I've been dealing with him my whole life. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. And that's what
JUJU
was
said
referring to. JUJU said something to the effect of, I've been dealing with this kid since I was 7 or 6 years old. His tactics, it's nothing new to me. Nothing he says is going to surprise me. His games he plays, that doesn't matter to me. That's the nutshell of what he said.
JUJU,
they've been racing each other forever. Yeah.
Well, and we've seen whenever Deegan does get, some kind of pushback from somebody at any level, it seems to really get the fire. And Johnny, you said it even when you introduced the whole Hayden Deegan here this morning. It was like, okay, well, if there was some shit talk going on, then boy, it sure created that paradigm swing that we want to see and like to see from Deegan. And then, of course, Deegan's not going to be afraid to tell you why he's all hot under the collar, which just makes for some great racing. He's stuff.
Playing the game. I love that about Deegan. Like I love that he talks shit. He leans into it big time. He's a good sport. And what I said about JUJU, like I like Hayden Deegan. I think he's good for the sport. He brings in a lot. Go to the pits and look at the line outside of his trailer. That's what the sport needs. We need that. I love that guy.
Yeah.
But in terms of this year, this season, two guys going at it. JUJU has his number, and could Hayden regroup and win out? Sure, he could.
Would you be surprised?
Let's not forget who he is. But I think that there is a mental battle going on, and I believe that JUJU believes he is the better man.
So think about this, Johnny.
If you're going to do this, and this is a breakout year for JUJU.
Yep.
And think about this, Johnny. Think about the 250 class 3 shows ago. Would we have been talking about JUJU and Cole Davies? It was the Deegan, Levi Kitchen. We thought Shimoda would be in there. Like Beaumare wasn't, I don't think he was off anyone's radar, but he wasn't at the level of conversation that he is right now. That's what I love about a new year.
When he hit that quad on Instagram, I was like, this kid's coming around. I wasn't surprised to see I wasn't surprised to see him kind of assert himself into the series. But like I said, for him, A2 was so big for JUJU because Deegan didn't put 3 straightaways on him. He kept him within reason. He put in a disciplined, ice cold, definite second place. Yeah. And that required a lot of maturity for him to not lose his shit, for not let Jordan Smith to bother him, for him to not waste time. He just said, you know what? It's Hayden's night. Let's just sail this home. And some guys can't do that.
This weekend is going to be interesting with the short main events, right? Because Deegan's going to have to get good starts in order to have something happen. And
I think that's going to work to Cole Davies' advantage. What do you think, Johnny? Because he's such a
well,
stud
because he's
on
already
start.
proven that he can win heat races.
And so
Yeah.
Cody Shock,
Yeah.
baby.
Cody's got some starts on point. And Johnny, have you seen the track layout? What is the start? Is it going into left-hander or right-hander?
Honestly, I haven't looked at it yet. That's on my list of
Floor
things
plan
to
is
do.
massive.
Is it
massive? Big track.
Do we have a nice long start?
I think so. I have to double check, but I looked at it yesterday and I was just thinking, holy shit, that's a supercross track right there. I want to play that one on the next bikes, you know?
Exactly. Johnny, what is showing for Triumph? 3 rounds all the way up to the last lap. You had Triumph on the podium all 3.
Yeah, and Smith.
That was huge.
Potentially going for second. Like I said on my live deal, I would much rather, if I was the manager of Triumph, I'd much rather having my guy racing for second than settling for third.
We're talking about it. You know what I mean? But props to that Triumph platform. I mean, up there, think about how established all those other bikes are, the PC bikes.
That's around Jordan Smith. That's the perfect guy to do it. Have him become a mentor for anyone else that comes up here. Have him somewhat become a mentor for your team on how to copycat Star Yamaha, right? Yeah. You don't want... I think that was one of the main reasons Mitch Payton was so apt to have Levi Kitchen come over, was it was like, okay, Star Yamaha's been kicking our ass. What can you tell me about this? How can we implement this? You know, that's all very good. And however, guys, I'm going to save the rest for later this week and next week's show. I appreciate AJ coming on board. AJ, we'll grab dinner on Friday. Coach, as always, dude, enjoy having you on here. I got to go get a little miss out of bed here, but appreciate both of you mofos. And
hit the subscribe button.
This long.
Hit the subscribe, hit the like button, please, guys. It's right there. Please.
Yeah, not to beg, but you're not a true moto fan if you don't hit that like button.
Well, we just appreciate it. We love doing these shows, but we like to have the YouTube algorithms know what we're doing. So thank you guys for being with us.
Definitely. Well,
and AJ, thanks for having you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Guys, everybody, by the way, I'm a crypto YouTuber. My name's AJ Writes Crypto. Subscribe if you want to. If not, I love doing motocross stuff. Johnny, very excited to have dinner with you Friday. Coach Rob, always good to see you.
Good to see you, AJ.
Until next time, everybody. Har, 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 har.